One woman we spoke to, she said it wasn't only chaotic on the outside of the venue, but inside as well. Some of the comments on the Fox 4 Facebook page read, "World's biggest scammers." This commenter called it a traveling monster truck circus.
The ride in one of the trucks is $21.
It is a complete ripoff.
If you're on your way, do not come out here. Worst fucking place ever. Fuck the Monster Truckz.
I've been following this Monster Truck tour since its beginning, and it really is one of the most unique operations in Monster Trucks. This isn't a small-time production I'm talking about. They perform just as much as Monster Jam and have nearly half the social media following as them, which is significantly more than any other independent Monster Truck tour. Their reputation within the Monster Truck community isn't great, and honestly, I've never seen this much backlash against a Monster Truck tour before. In many ways, Monster Truckz with a Z is a black sheep within the industry. So let's delve into their short history, look at what they've done differently than other promoters, and see the effects it's had on themselves and the Monster Truck industry as a whole. I want to make a note here at the start that not everyone has had a bad experience with the Monster Truckz with a Z tour. These people had a good time, and so did this family. And there's positive reviews online for them too. Everyone's experience is different, so please keep this in mind. The Monster Truckz with a Z tour, or the Z tour as we'll call it from now on, is operated out of Florida by Stellar Entertainment Group Incorporated. More specifically, it's run by the Garden family. The Gardens are businessmen who are legal directors of an impressive portfolio of business ventures. In fact, according to the Florida Department of State, the Garden who legally operates Stellar Entertainment Group is also a director in all of these active businesses, including a concession company, a real estate broker, and whatever this is. Most notable are their circus operations. The Gardens come from a long line of circus operators and have run circuses under many different names in the US and Canada for generations, even receiving high honors for this work. That being said, issues have arisen with the various circuses owned by the Garden family over the years, between public safety violations, unpaid bills, lawsuits, arrests, and even employees shooting one another. Garden-operated circuses seem to have a rocky history. The Garden Circus still operates today, under the name Garden Brothers Nuclear Circus, and reviews are mixed, although generally negative. A few years ago, the Gardens wanted to try something else, and what better industry to dabble in than Monster Trucks?
Some people would argue that a Monster Truck show is like a circus. It's a traveling act. Just get rid of the, get rid of the animals and the clowns and add Monster Trucks. I mean,
this is where the Z Tour began. In 2019, the Garden family purchased Ballistic and Radical Motion, giving the latter a new identity as Avalanche. Their team was branded as Garden Motorsports. This was their move into the monster truck industry, but they weren't just team owners. They were starting their own tour. In October of that year, the Monster Truckz Extreme Tour began. Alongside the two Garden Motorsports trucks, early regulars on the tour included Crazy Train, Aftershock, Culture Shock, and Fluffy. At first, it seemed like just a drop in the monster truck bucket. And well, it was. Mediocre events featuring mostly smaller name monster trucks at rural outdoor venues was their MO. To be honest, they didn't stir much attention from anyone at this point. The most unique aspects of the Z Tour early on were their announcer, who was a DJ with the full Z Tour branded DJ booth, and dueling freestyles that closed out many of their events. As the year turned and 2020 kicked off, the Gardens continued touring in the southeastern US. Early on, they found their niche, being the only monster truck promoter in the US to hold a first quarter tour entirely at outdoor venues. Little did anyone know, a few months later in March 2020, the whole world would turn upside down. Now, obviously, COVID-19 shut down the entire monster truck industry. The Z Tour, however, was in the perfect position to bounce back once the world began to regain some normalcy. Pandemic restrictions were eased in the South first, and this was perfect for the Z Tour. They were already in the rural, outdoor, southern market, so they began touring earlier and more aggressively than their competitors as pandemic restrictions were lifted. The Gardens made a full tour schedule towards the end of 2020, even featuring larger independent names now, like Buckshot, Jester, Kraken, and Gunslinger. For many, this influx of talent is what truly put the Z Tour on the map as a tour to watch. In fall 2020, Garden Motorsports introduced 2 new identities to their roster. Gold Digger, a golden Lamborghini which ran on the Ballistic chassis, and Tyrone the Terrible, an evil gorilla theme which originally ran on Culture Shock. As the year turned, the Z Tour continued building on their success. They added another tour in early 2021, the Monster Truckz Mayhem Tour, and even secured the all-new Jurassic Attack for a full first quarter tour. Their shows were pretty good at this point, and they were employing monster truck teams that otherwise didn't have anywhere else to perform at. They were doing very well, producing 5 show weekends on 2 separate tours for months and months on end. And this was during the first quarter that Monster Jam only did a few events, so I would argue the Z Tour was temporarily the largest monster truck tour in the world, an impressive feat given the tour began less than 2 years prior. COVID was a difficult time for the monster truck industry, but the Z Tour helped their independent monster truck teams recover. Many of the teams who performed on the Z Tour during this time financially relied on these gigs, and would have struggled even more than they already did from the COVID shutdown if it weren't for the Z Tour. Around spring 2021, normalcy was truly returning, and the general public was now much more comfortable going to large outdoor events than they had been since the beginning of the pandemic. Other promoters started touring full-time again, and this is where the Z Tour's luck began running out. As the summer season drew nearer that year, the big names running on the Z Tour got booked for other shows. Jester, Kraken, Buckshot, Jurassic Attack, and Kamikaze. They all disappeared from the Z Tour's roster. This left a huge talent void. The Z Tour replaced these top-tier independent trucks with lesser-known trucks like Heavy Hitter, Ghost Rider, Basher, Girl Power, and many, many others. Just look at this list of trucks that competed on the Z Tour in 2021. Heavy Hitter and Ghost Rider were no strangers to getting wild, but this wasn't enough to replace the talent that just left. With most teams having scattered bookings from other promoters, I imagine it was difficult to book trucks around this time. Seemingly in response, Garden Motorsports started buying up monster truck operations. They scooped up Beach Bum, Hang Loose, Country Boy, and the former Turbulence chassis around summer 2021. Turbulence became the new Avalanche, but other than that, the newly acquired trucks were mostly run as is. Hang Loose was severely damaged after this crash at its first show under Garden Motorsports ownership, and didn't make another appearance for nearly a year. Around the same time, Donnie Hebert, owner and driver of Aftershock, who was also employed by the Z Tour at this time, bought the former Hurricane Force chassis off Tim Mente. This truck was run as a new version of Tyrone the Terrible, with the Ford pickup body replacing the Escalade body. With this new chassis, he instantly went from being the small-time driver of Aftershock to the most competitive driver on tour. The Extreme Tour stayed on the East Coast for the remainder of the 2021 season. It was now dominated by Tyrone the Terrible and Ghost Rider. The Mayhem Tour made a West Coast swing during the latter half of 2021, hitting states like Washington, Arizona, and Montana. This tour didn't have the star power the Extreme Tour did, and was mostly dominated by Basher, Heavy Hitter, and Backdraft. The Z Tour finished out the year and took about a 2-month break, starting back up again in February 2022. Sometime around then, the tour changed its logo, removing the point at the bottom. As in the year prior, for 2022, Derek Anson's team stayed on the Mayhem Tour, while Tyrone and Ghost Rider remained on the Extreme Tour. Tyrone actually debuted a new trophy truck body at the start of 2022, although Donnie Hebert left the Z Tour shortly thereafter. He began touring with other promoters, sporting his new cold-blooded identity. Donnie was still the Z Tour's best driver, so when he left, there was once again a talent void. This was exacerbated on the Extreme Tour by Ghost Rider switching to the Mayhem Tour shortly afterwards. Some bigger names like Overkill Evolution, Jurassic Attack, Crazy Train, and Reptoid made occasional appearances, but weren't regulars for more than a few weeks. They actually added a third tour in March, the Monster Truckz Chaos Tour, meaning the Z Tour was now performing in 3 cities every weekend. This didn't last long, however. About 2 months later, the Extreme Tour was shuttered, meaning the Z Tour was back to 2 cities a weekend. Around this time, Tyrone briefly returned on another chassis, but never back to competitive levels. In August, Ballistic returned for the first time since 2019, this time on a brand new Eddie chassis. Around this time, the Mayhem Tour was shut down too, leaving only the Chaos Tour. The Z Tour canceled all tour dates for September on its only remaining tour, and took a hiatus. During this time, some much needed maintenance was done on the Garden Motorsports trucks. With only one tour left and 5 actively running Garden Motorsports trucks, the Z-Tour didn't regularly need to hire external monster trucks anymore. The lineup for many Z-Tour shows in late 2022 consisted of 4 or 5 Garden Motorsports trucks only. In November, Tyrone returned again, this time on the original Ballistic and Gold Digger chassis. Believe it or not, the Z-Tour had a major stadium event lined up on their schedule for late 2022. They were going to visit Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium in Memphis, Tennessee. This stadium. I was really looking forward to seeing what the Z-Tour did with such a large venue, but the event was cancelled sometime around early September. As of upload, they just wrapped up their 2022 season and have their 2023 schedule posted, which consists of 1 tour and starts in February. We can't talk about the Z-Tour without talking about the criticism they've received. YouTube videos, Reddit posts, even multiple Facebook pages that repost negative reviews. They also have a page on the Better Business Bureau, a website for people to make scams and shady business practices known. Relative to other monster truck promoters, they've received quite the handful of complaints on the BBB. It's one thing to watch a video at home and complain about the show being bad, but these complaints are from customers who actually spent money and attended their live events. I've never seen this for any other monster truck promoter, including Monster Jam, who definitely gets their fair share of hate. There are 2 main reasons why people complain about the Z-Tour. Attending is expensive, and the show disappoints. Really, they're connected. People won't be upset at a disappointing show if it's cheap, nor an expensive show that's really good. It's all about finding the right balance between cost and quality. And for many people, the Z-Tour doesn't do that well. To fully understand people's beef with the Z-Tour, we need to understand why people go to their events. This is what the Z-Tour has been really good at, filling the grandstands. And to be honest, it is what's most important for the Z-Tour from a pure business standpoint. Their methods are copied from their circus operation, and they're pretty smart too. They offer these free kids tickets online and, according to their website, at local schools, daycare centers, fast food restaurants, convenience stores, salons, and large employers. It's free advertising. People see this free ticket on Facebook or at McDonald's and think they're getting a deal. A free ticket sure sounds like a steal. What also sounds like a good deal is that adult tickets start at just $16.50. Yes, you can get adult tickets for $16.50, but there's only 100 available per showing. Once those are gone, you'll be subjected to what's called dynamic ticket pricing. You may have heard about this as it's been in the news recently. Basically, ticket prices fluctuate depending on supply and demand. It's a common practice in the concert industry. To illustrate this with the Z-Tour, I played around with their ticketing site back in August. If you try to buy tickets for an event months ahead of time, the $16.50 deal is available and regular adult tickets are only $30. This is still a little steep for a small speedway monster truck show, but if you can get a kid in for free too, it's a good deal. Anyway, if you try and buy tickets for an event day of, the ticket price has skyrocketed to $55. The demand has increased because showtime is near, so they're able to charge more. And the $16.50 deal is long gone. Then, if you look at an event a week out, tickets are $38 with the $16.50 deal gone too. Soon, however, tickets for this event will be $55 as well. So ticket prices online can get pricey if you wait to buy. But what about day of box office tickets? Most recently, up to $75 for a single adult ticket. It's not unusual for box office tickets to be more expensive than online sales, but $75 is more than double what most other small independent shows charge for one adult ticket. And I've yet to mention there's a $10 to $20 parking fee. From a pure business standpoint, a parking fee is a pretty genius way of trapping potential customers into paying for an expensive event. People are less likely to turn around and leave when they see how costly box office tickets are if they've already paid $20 just to park. Plus, the promoter stands to make thousands of dollars per event off of it. With high prices come high expectations. And luckily, the Z-Tour offers tons of fun pit party activities, which are advertised as free. Monster truck rides, a bounce house, huge carnival slide, face painting, camel rides, meet and greet with the trucks and drivers, and even a cocktail bar at some shows. It's more than just a monster truck show. It's an experience. The stinger is, some of these activities aren't actually free. Bounce house, $7. Carnival slide, also $7. A monster truck ride, $21. If you have small kids with you, like most people their events do, it's very hard to say no to these activities, even if you thought they were going to be free. In response to complaints about this, the Z-Tour reminds people that the pit party is in fact free. However, the activities in the pit party are not free. To me, this is like saying the bowling alley is free. Technically, it is. I can walk in and it's not a problem. But if I want to bowl, I'm going to have to pay for it. Concessions and merchandise are pricey too, although this isn't that unusual for live events, so I'm not going to talk about it much. The kicker is that concession prices aren't posted anywhere. As I said, it's normal for event concessions to be expensive, but not posting prices is plain deceiving. These business practices relating to the event, activity, and concession pricing are the exact same way with their circus. The point is, the Z Tour is costly to attend, and with those high prices come high expectations for the Monster Truck show. An absolute joke. All the drivers at the smallest jumps possible. There's no excitement. All they did was go over tiny jumps. The trucks are pathetic. It's a circus, not a monster truck show. Remember in spring 2021 when most of the big name monsters running on the Z Tour left? That's when these complaints began piling up. Let's look at what you get from an average Z Tour event and see why. Tracks largely consist of dirt ramps, although sometimes crush car obstacles can be found too. One of the drivers for the tour, Mike Carucci, brings up a good point about this. The venue wouldn't allow cars to be crushed due to safety and debris concerns. At the end of the day, venues have control over how their space is used, and every monster truck promoter must work with this. I see people fully blame promoters for not using crushed cars, but sometimes that's not the full truth. The track and obstacle paint on the Z Tour is top tier. Their artist name is Def Michael, and in a world where most monster truck tracks are either unpainted or two-tone painted, Def Michael paints Bart Simpson, the Minions, and other characters on the Z Tour's obstacles. I think his work is only rivaled by the World Finals 9 through 12 tracks, and I always look forward to seeing what he comes up with. The Z Tour has a typical two-wheel racing freestyle format, with side acts in between. For the two-wheel competition, you sometimes get these unimpressive racing lane leaps. Some trucks hit steeper ramps, but they're not always steep enough to get sky wheelies, poppers, or nose wheelies off of. A big exception to this was Larry Quick, who set his truck up specifically to get double and triple slap wheelies, something no other driver on any other tour does. Racing switches between time trials and bracket style depending on the venue. Bracket style racing is typically either Chicago style or straight line drags. This is the way most of the monster truck industry is, so let's not dwell on it. Freestyle on the Z Tour is a mixed bag and hard to generalize. Passes like this one were pretty common in late 2021 and early 2022. 3 to 5 small jumps, and without the truck braking, the run is over. I did a lot of video research for this project, and I haven't seen this as often recently, which I think is an important move. Following those runs are longer, more complete performances, although typically with little carnage. That being said, there have been some really strong freestyle performances and wild moments on the Z Tour. Like this event, which featured big air hits from most of the trucks, a camper to smash, and even a backflip. Or this crash saved from Tyrone the Terrible. Even this nosedive from Dysfunctional happened on the Z Tour. Still though, the vast majority of Z Tour shows don't have backflips or crazy crashes, and disappointment seems to be common. As for side acts, A Globe of Death and a Lil Bomber Mini Monster have performed in the past. Most recently, a standard FMX performance seems to be the most popular. The Human Cannonball, a recycled circus act, and Mikey Mayhem, an automotive stunt performer who does tricks and flips in stock vehicles, also perform. Personally, I think Mikey Mayhem's stunts are one of the best side acts for a monster truck show out there. He used to have his own YouTube channel too, which was basically an R-rated version of V2 Vids, but the channel is not currently available. While show quality really seems to vary from week to week depending on many factors that change at differing venues, in my opinion, the Z Tour generally seems to rank in the mid to sometimes low tier when compared to their competition. For a mid-tier show, you expect mid-tier pricing, and this is why some of their customers feel scammed. For customers who pay the most, the price-quality balance is way off kilter. Some people pay a lot of money to attend these shows, and it's no wonder why they leave disappointed after paying high prices and the show wasn't highly impressive. Aside from the price-quality imbalance, the Z Tour has received criticism for not refunding tickets for canceled or rescheduled shows, even being accused of rescheduling a show in Oregon and then not showing up to put the event on. Overcrowding seems to be another common complaint, with police and local news showing up to one event in Missouri last year to break up and report on disputes at the event related to overselling tickets. Even behind the scenes, the Z Tour has run into issues. Garden Motorsports Incorporated, the company that owns the Z Tour's Monster Trucks, is defended in a lawsuit in Florida brought by WW Motocross Park LLC for not paying an amount between $15,000 and $30,000. As of the time of writing, this case has yet to be decided. For these reasons, some view the Z Tour as a scam, and I can certainly see why people think that. But I want to dive deeper and look for other explanations. I think there's more to it than just profiteering. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're not price gouging, and analyze why the Z Tour has its pricing and quality issues. The Z-Tour can respond to people on the BBB, and they have. They say they don't issue refunds, and then immediately issue refunds. They also remind people that you don't have to purchase merchandise or concessions, and that entertainment is subject to change without notice. That's all to be expected, but this line explaining why their pricing is so high is what's really interesting to me. Basically, they say the cost for them to do business is high, and that gets passed down to the consumer. Honestly, I don't doubt that. Nearly everything at the Z-Tour is owned by the Z-Tour. And that's a lot of stuff. They have to haul around the box office, multiple inflatables, multiple ride and race trucks, a carnival slide, tents, merchandise, concession equipment, signage, a face painting station, the human cannon, event staff, and more, all on their own dime. And they only have 4 or 5 days to tear down at one venue, travel, and set up at the next. Plus, if it's a venue like the one I saw them at last year, the grandstands and safety barriers have to be rented and shipped in too, because the venue was literally just an empty field. It's actually pretty impressive that they're able to do this week in and week out for months at a time. This is not the industry norm though. Most independent monster truck productions have a few canopies, some plastic tables, maybe a rider race truck, and some other small things. Concessions are commonly done by local or venue food vendors, and the local food venues are invited to the event, making their money solely by selling food, so it's no cost to the promoter. Merchandise is provided by and sometimes even sold by the monster truck teams, so it's little or no cost to the promoter as well. Anything else the promoter could need? Usually locally sourced. Moving from city to city is easier this way. Plus, local businesses benefit when they sponsor the event or receive business from the promoter. So long as the show itself is good, customers will be satisfied with this and remember the event fondly. Unlike their competition, the Z-Tour gives a grandiose, towering appearance. They do this with a city of big tents and trailers, all branded with the same yellow and blue striped color scheme. It's a bold and memorable look. It seems like they're trying to bring the imagery and feeling of the Big Top Circus to a monster truck show. Having everything boldly designed and branded in the same way is largely about creating a memorable, distinct experience. You're more likely to remember massive, bright, colorful tents and trailers than a simple canopy, right? But the cost to design, purchase, staff, and transport all of this must be high. And when these costs are passed to the customers in the form of high prices, bad memories are left in people's minds. So, does it really work? The Big and Bright Midway serves its purpose of making distinct memories, but all too often, they're bad memories being created. As for the lower caliber monster truck shows, there's a few factors that determine the quality of any monster truck show, like venue size and requirements, plus the specific trucks and drivers performing. For the Z-Tour, I think the biggest factor is their hectic schedule.
The Z-Tour, you know, them guys are running, I think, since February till now and put on 400 shows or something. That's insane.
They do 4 events per weekend, week after week, for months on end. For trucks performing on the Z-Tour, this means very little time to make repairs and properly maintain the trucks. It's hard to run monster trucks competitively and aggressively on a schedule like this. If the drivers push their trucks too hard, they're going to break and miss shows. So sometimes they have to hold back. In the circus industry, a chaotic schedule like this is possible. If the performers are trained well enough, they can physically and mentally handle multiple performances a day. This doesn't translate to monster trucks though. You can't train a monster truck not to break. It has to be maintained and repaired after every performance, which takes time, something the Z-Tour has less of compared to other productions due to their schedule. The Z-Tour actually had a unique way of limiting this issue in early 2021. At this point, they ran daunting 5-show weekends, booking 8 trucks for each event. However, only 6 of the 8 trucks would perform at any given show, meaning each truck could sit out for 1 to 2 shows per weekend. This was a really interesting way of giving each truck a break, and if it allows the drivers to run more competitively, then I can support it. The Z-Tour has already left an impact on the monster truck industry and will continue to do so. I've noticed other promoters adopting the free kids ticket. The Z-Tour has done a good job of bringing people to their events with this tactic, so I'm not surprised to see this. If free kids tickets help promoters bring audiences to their shows, then I'm all for it. There have been other circus promoters who have started their own monster truck tours, which are very similar to the Z-Tour. Remember how the Z-Tour is operated by the Garden family?
This is also from another circus promoter.
Holy crap. What's up with the
Oh my
circuses
gosh,
putting on
Here,
monster
here,
trucks?
here, here's the funny thing. This is by the Carden brothers with a C.
Mega Monster Truckz Live was basically a copycat of the Z-Tour. MMTL also offered a free kids ticket, and the first 100 tickets were only $14.50, slightly undercutting the Z-Tour. Plus, they too had a human cannonball and a 5 to 6 truck lineup at each event. Mega Monster Truckz Live was geared more towards indoor arenas, although I can't find much else about them because they've been inactive for over a year. Their last social media post was in January 2022, hyping their 2022 tour that never came to be. The Cardens actually provided performance elephants to the Garden Bros Bros Circus at one point, so the two families are, if nothing else, acquaintances.
It's actually called Monster Crush Mania. So they are the ones that are like distant, like somewhat family relatives to the Garden Brothers camp with Monster Trucks with a Z.
It's true that Monster Crush Mania was operated, at least in part, by the Gardens, so it's no surprise to see a parking fee, free kids ticket, early ticket discounts, and a human cannonball. My favorite part of this tour is that this was their logo. Their website homepage looks like this, so I'm gonna say they didn't last either. In general, the monster truck industry has become extremely saturated over the past few years, with the Z Tour playing a big part in that. All of these tours have begun since the pandemic, while others have grown. With the monster truck fan base spreading out across more and more events, it's meant that each event is seeing smaller crowd turnouts, with many events being cancelled for low advance ticket sales. Largely for this reason, many of the aforementioned new tours have already ceased operations. Overall, the monster truck industry is more cutthroat than it's ever been. So where is the Z Tour headed? My guess is they're in this for the long haul. After all, they just spent a lot of money on a brand new chassis for Ballistic and upgrades for other trucks. The Garden Motorsports drivers have shown promise recently, with Mike Carucci nailing nose wheelies while the other drivers have shown skill behind the wheel too. That being said, so long their bustling schedule continues, I don't see the Z Tour ever being able to run their trucks hard enough to rival the top monster truck productions. It appears they've dropped the Chaos Tour branding on their website, so for now it looks like they're sticking to just a single tour. They're being more transparent about kids' activity and parking pricing, showing prices on the advanced purchasing site. I'm glad to see some increase in transparency, as deceptive marketing is a reason why many fans have called the Z Tour a scam. Overall, so long there's money to be made in the Z Tour, I don't see the Garden family leaving, even if this means changing the tour name one day. The Z Tour is one of the strangest monster truck tours the industry has ever seen. Between a DJ announcer, a meteoric rise to the top of the industry fueled by the COVID pandemic, unique marketing and ticketing tactics, brightly branded big top tents and trailers, a non-stop months on end schedule, an unusually poor reputation, and circus promoter owners, the Z Tour truly stands out from the rest of the monster truck industry. It's been interesting to watch the Z Tour, and its fellow circus tours, grow and evolve over the past 3 years. While the Z Tour isn't my favorite monster truck tour, and probably isn't yours either, I hope this video provided fair commentary rather than just unending complaints or baseless facts. If you enjoyed this video, consider watching these, as they were my inspiration for this project. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again on the next episode of Monster Docs.